Hey, sober friends. Each week, our podcast dives deep into recovery insights. Our companion newsletter takes that conversation to a whole different level. It's an in-depth article that explores our podcast topic from a completely different angle. Think of it as your essential resource in sobriety, content that expands and enriches what you hear on the show. Are you feeling curious? Worried that you're gonna miss out? Head to SoberFriendsPod.com, scroll to the bottom, and subscribe. Trust me, in your journey of recovery, this newsletter could be the game-changing resource you didn't know you needed.
In our community, we have a sponsor because they're able to put on the range. You know, they're able to go, yo, back down a little bit, right? Like, yes. Let's dial it back a little bit. Let's focus on your stuff, because if this person's 209 days sober, I don't know, maybe they didn't even make it through all the steps, right? I'm not even sure, right? Who knows if they're doing our program? So. You know, you really got to start thinking about that, because if you move too fast, it's like the guys, you know, we see it all the time. Come in, I'm great, I'm feeling good, I'm back in the gym, I'm working out. Like, these people just trying to get everything back quickly, and so I think it's a common feeling.
I'm Matt.
Hey, I'm Steve.
Hey, I'm John.
This is the Sober Friends Podcast. We're here for the sober curious, the new guy, and the old timer. Here to talk about the stuff anyone looking to live alcohol-free has to face day to day, and how we overcame those struggles. We speak for no 12-step group, but we do try to remain anonymous. You're not alone. This is the Sober Friends Podcast. Steve, I set up a Sober Friends Pod TikTok account. I have been resistant to going into TikTok for a very long time, but now I have one at Sober Friends Pod. It's the same on all social media sites. I also deleted all my Twitter handles this week. Yeah. I decided no more Twitter. I'm done, and I haven't missed it. All right. And I'm playing around with Blue Sky, which is a lot of fun. But back to TikTok. So I've been hesitant to do this, and I set one up, and I'm trying to post something once or twice a day to build something up. And the engagement I get there just after a couple days dwarfs Instagram right now, even though I have a lot more Instagram followers than TikTok followers after just a couple days. And I do like the mix of recovery on TikTok. Whatever's in my feed right now happens to be new people. And I do like hearing new people's stories. One of the stories that I heard today was somebody who's 209 days sober. And she was kind of beating herself up for not doing enough in her recovery. She's 209 days sober, but I don't feel like I'm doing enough. And I think this was also tied into the pink cloud. Like, she's coming off the pink cloud now, and it's 209 days. I'm still sober, but I just don't feel like I'm doing enough. I thought this was a really good topic for people, because there's a lot of times I feel that way. After 10 years, I'm not doing enough. Now, I immediately commented, and my comment to her was, you're sober today. Therefore, you've done enough. That's all you have. And if you just do a little bit each day, it's a marathon over time. But I also forget that a little bit of progress, even a baby crawl, half an inch, if I do that every day, is many miles over time.
Yeah, good morning, Matt. Great to be here. You know, that's always a great topic. It's always something I think about in my sobriety. And, you know, it depends on what you mean by, am I not doing enough? Am I not doing enough for my sobriety? Am I not doing enough to reach out to other people? So a little bit depends on that. I do think that when you're 209 days sober, and you're really grateful that you got 209 days. Like, you're grateful. You're not like white knuckling it. You're like, oh my God, I feel so good. I think maybe I found something that'll work for me. Right? We've been there. That you start thinking about am I doing enough? You start thinking about the people who have influenced you and who have helped you, and you start looking at those people because those people tendency to be service type people, right? So if somebody's reaching out and doing stuff with you, then they seem to be service orientated people. And so it's easy to look at those and, well, I need to do more. But I'll tell you this, at 209 days sober, you need to be a little bit selfish, a little bit, because you need to make sure you're working on your recovery. You need to make sure whatever your focus is, it's on what you need. And that will take care of itself. Like if you're doing that, finding ways to help other people hearing your message, other people just seeing what you're doing will be helpful. And I'll give you a perfect example. I took a commitment from my Friday night meeting at a detox. We have a standing commitment every second Tuesday at a detox center in Hartford, and which is in Connecticut. And I had it, and actually I hadn't asked anybody. Usually 2 people go, maybe 3 people go, and I hadn't asked anybody. I haven't asked. It was just me, and I finally asked one of the guys. I got a new sponsee. I asked him. I'm like, hey, you know, if you're available, you should do this with me. And he was like, yeah, I can do it. So he did it. And then at our Monday night meeting, right, we had a new guy there, 99 days sober, if you remember that, just last week.
Yes, I do.
Right? I talked to him afterwards, and I said, hey, I got this commitment tomorrow, right? Now, I just met this guy. Tomorrow at a detox center. If you have any interest, let me know. Like, he'd not drive, like, I'll come pick you up and stuff like that. So here are these 2 guys. The guy I'm working with.
Yes.
It was a yes. Well, it was like, yeah, I'm interested, and I'm not sure if I can make it. And he actually reaches out to me late, like 5:30. I'm eating dinner, like, hey, I'd like to go. And I'm like, okay, now I got to scramble. How am I going to get him? And, but we worked it out.
Yep.
And so I take these 2 guys. One was 78 days sober. One, at that point, he had 100 days sober. And I brought him to this detox, and they told their stories a little bit and it was fantastic, right? So here's 2 guys. All they're doing is going out to a meeting, right? I mean, listen, they're not doing a lot, but they said yes to doing something. So my point is, like, you can do some stuff at less than 100 days sober or less than 200 days sober. But it also gave them an opportunity to look at these guys. There was about 13 or 14 people, a couple women were in there, so that they could also look at it and go, oh, yeah, I remember. I was just here a few months ago. Like, literally, these guys were just being detoxed a few months ago. So there's lots of ways you can do stuff, but it is so important to just pay attention to what you need. And then, like I said, early on, the other stuff will take care of it and itself. And if you stay, like I said, it's a marathon. So if you stay within the program,
Yes.
you'll have plenty of time to do lots of service.
You also only have today. I'm a big believer in that. I'm a believer in it, and sometimes I have to remind myself. You only have today, and if you're doing something today, that's good. I think this is a guilt thing, too, that I went so long drinking that the fact that I'm only 200 days sober and I'm doing this is not enough. I should be boiling the ocean by now, right. And I feel guilty for the past.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question, right? Again, it's like a lot of times we come in, we want to start fixing stuff right away, right?
Yes.
That's what we do. And listen, in our program, we talked about TikTok. There's a whole community out there of people online who aren't using AA, which is what we use to get and stay sober. But in our program, right, reaching out to help other people is a big thing, And I don't know. I lost my train of thought there, so go for it.
Senior moment.
Yeah.
I look at guilt from the past,
There it is.
and then it is also, do I deserve this?
Right. No,
and am I doing the right things?
Right. No, that guilt from the past. That's what it is, and I don't think there's any question about it, right? I know when I came in, I talk about it all the time. Like when I first, especially when I first came in, I was very guilty, right? I was underemployed or unemployed. I had a young family at home that I was neglecting. I felt like I needed to really step up and do a lot of stuff. And again, I talk about it. And in my case, I made some wrong decisions. I moved away from the program of recovery in order to take care of some of those things, which didn't work out well for me. But that's the point. Like we do have this thing. We want to go so fast. So the point I was starting to make before I lost my train of thought was that's what sponsors are for, right? I mean it. Like that's what I'm saying. Like in our community, we have a sponsor because they're able to put on the range. You know, they're able to go, yo, back down a little bit, right? Like
Yes.
let's dial it back a little bit. Let's focus on your stuff. Because if this person's 209 days sober, I don't know, maybe they didn't even make it through all the steps, right? I'm not even sure, right? Who knows if they're doing our program. So, you know, you really got to start thinking about that, because if you move too fast, it's like the guys, you know, we see it all the time. Come in, I'm great, I'm feeling good, I'm back in the gym, I'm working out. Like these people just trying to get everything back quickly. And so I think it's a common feeling. I think it's a common thought that we need to do more when we come in.
So this is also coming down from a pink cloud. So if you don't know what a pink cloud is, I'll explain it the best I can. When you first get sober and you're able to do something, you feel great. That feeling of you've gotten started, you're moving, you're not drinking, you're being successful is enough to carry you through. And then after a period of time, the boredom sets in, that it has become the norm that you're sober. And then the real work begins. It's not that excitement and that novelty anymore. That wears off, and now you have to do something else to continue. And there's a lot of people who drop off at that point. And once that pink cloud feeling ends, you can feel that because the novelty is gone and I'm not as excited as I was, something's wrong. I'm not doing enough. Something's wrong. No, nothing's wrong. This is nature. The novelty was not going to end. The novelty was going to end at some point. It's like you fall in love with somebody. You don't have that initial feeling that you did before. It doesn't mean the relationship is over. Its feelings change. And now that it's become the norm, you have to find something else to motivate you to move forward. And I don't think that this is just a newcomer's thing. This happens at all levels of sobriety.
Oh, I don't think there's any question, right? It's that whole, boredom, just sort of relaxing on your past work. Like there's a lot of things we do. Listen, it's for those of us in recovery, right? And that's why we say, I'd never say I'm a recovered alcoholic, right? I'm an alcoholic in recovery. That's an action, right? That means I'm doing something for my recovery. So there's work to be done, and there's a whole bunch of stuff for me. I've come to realize that I love the fellowship, right? Like, we talk about there's this whole epidemic of loneliness out there. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have that problem. I don't have that problem, right? At least 3 times a week, I'm out with 12 to 15, 25 people, right? Meeting with them 3 times a week, at least. So I don't have that isolation, and I'm grateful for that. Like I'm grateful for that piece of it, and I'm grateful for the fact that the people who I associate with are in the same boat as me. Like they understand me when I talk about my struggles, when I talk about, my mental health, struggles, they understand me, right? Where a lot of people don't. Like I'm not, these are very intimate, relationships, even though they're very public, or I don't know these people that well. When we get in a room with fellow alcoholics, they become very intimate relationships. We share stuff that we don't typically share with other people. So it really is a big deal for me to be out there and do that kind of stuff for myself, and just to continue to do it. I mean, it's just part of who I am. It's work. My point is that it's work. It's like it doesn't change. There's plenty of days where I don't feel like doing something. I don't feel like going to my Monday night meeting. I don't feel like getting there early to set up tables. I don't feel like, I don't feel like doing these things, but I just know it's good for me. Like, we talk about it. It's like working out, right? How many, for anybody who works out, how many days do you get up where you don't feel like working out?
Right.
But you do, because it's good for you. And this is a little bit like that. Like, it's good for me to go to meetings. It's good for me to associate with other alcoholics. It's good for me to work with other alcoholics. It's good for me to extend my hand and offer my help. And therefore, I need to do it even when I'm not feeling like I want to.
This is a good point, because this is the old timer's dilemma. You're not a newcomer, so that's how I call it, the old timer's dilemma, is you're not going to meetings and you're not doing things just to stay sober. You're not struggling with your sobriety anymore. You're doing fine. So it becomes something different that you are trying to be involved with. For me, I don't go to meetings because I need to stay sober. I go to meetings because I'm afraid of relapse in the future. I want to prevent that. And I need the company. And I like helping other people.
Right.
And it motivates me to see people who are less sober than I am.
Yeah.
It becomes a very different reason.
There is no question that, we in our literature, it tells us we don't want to regret our past, nor do we want to shut the door on it. And that's exactly what it means, right? It's like, no matter how far down the ladder we fall in, we can always help somebody. And when we look at people who come in newly sober or trying to get sober, and we can see it, like we can look at it and go, yeah, I remember that. It just reminds us that that's available to us, right? I'm a real alcoholic. And if I don't do some work on addressing that, and it's exactly the same thing. If I was a diabetic and didn't address my diabetes, if I was, asthmatic and didn't address that, whatever it might be, I need to address it on a regular basis in order for me to stay healthy. And I'm a real alcoholic, and therefore I need to address my addiction on a regular basis, or else it will come back and hurt me. And there's no question. Like, I've done the research. I know it. I know how my mind works. So for me, that means going to meetings. Again, I shared about this when we were at the Tuesday night detox, and I'm like, my wife doesn't love me to be out as much as I'm out. She doesn't. She still pushes back on me now and then. She gets it. She appreciates that I'm sober. She appreciates that, I'm a nicer guy to live with than I was before I was doing all this work. But it also means that I'm out at least 2 nights a week, sometimes 3 nights a week. I picked up a noon meeting, so that's less impactful. But she doesn't love it. And then I pick up that speaking commitment, and I do another one. And I'm out, I was out Thursday night the past week speaking, and then I was out Tuesday speaking. Like, I pick up those things, and it's like, all of a sudden you look around and like, oh, I was out 5 of the last 7 nights, right? Yep. So she doesn't love that, but it's what I need to do. And I do understand that not everybody needs to do that, but it's what I need to do. And I need to do some of that just because people have done so much for me, and people continue to do so much for me, that I feel like I do need to give back, right? I do need to, when somebody comes up to me, I was asked by somebody, hey, will you be willing to sponsor me? My first reaction is, oh man, that's another hour or 2 a week, right? Really, I think about it. All right, now I'm going to have to devote at least another 2 hours probably a week to this person. But I always say yes if I can. I always say yes because it's just how this whole program works. And again, somebody did it for me. I feel like I need to do it for other people. Those opportunities are becoming less and less for me. Guys coming in are younger, and they're looking for younger sponsors, and I get that too, and that's fine. But when somebody asks, I always say yes. And I had a guy ask me to help him find a sponsor. Didn't ask me to sponsor him. He asked me to help him, and I'm like, sure. And I did. I talked to him and said, here, call this guy. And they did, and they're working together. So we'll see how it goes, but lots of way to help other people.
Unlike in business, where you can be ambitious and you want to take on the big tasks, there is no too small task in recovery. If you are given the job of, can you help me find somebody who can sponsor me? That's a big job, and you don't need the glory to be the person. If you are, that's great if it works for you. If not, that's okay too, because you're not going to put it on your resume or in your year-end review. This is about, I'm going to do this task and I'm going to feel better. The likelihood of me picking up a drink is less, and I'm giving back to the people who gave to me early on. So it really is okay about, well, I haven't done very much. No, you did enough. Nobody's judging you, and nobody's going to grade you. So don't grade yourself there.
You know, so this person, just by asking themselves that question, you can tell you that, like, they're on the right path, right?
Absolutely.
Right? So that's the thing. Like, people who are, you know, there's lots of people out there who aren't asking that question, am I doing enough? They're on the right path, and they will find their way, hopefully. And again, this just changes. Listen, people come, people go. People who shouldn't get it, and people who you think have it don't get it. So there's just no rhyme or reason, like who's going to come, who's going to stay, who's going to make it, and who's not going to make it. But just by asking that question, you go, okay, this person is on the right path. They are asking the right questions, and they are looking to do more. And then, you know, listen, they're going to have they're going to have plenty of time to do more. And that's a question that they should sit down with the sponsor and, like, all right, what can I do? Where do I go from here? Because there's lots of service work to do at 209 days sober. You know, especially there's a lot of service stuff where you're supposed to have a year sobriety that it's suggested. It's not written in stone. So there's lots of different ways you can reach out and help. And listen, we talk about it all the time. If you're in meetings, there's tons of meeting level service you can do. Tons of meeting level service you can do, right? Make coffee, whatever it might be. Cheer, pick up, but whatever it might be. So lots of opportunities to help. And for those of us who believe that that's part of our recovery, then it's easy to find those, and just go out there and look, and they'll pop up on your screen.
What are your thoughts on is putting together an effective sober media account, something positive that you're doing for the community?
You're a real crumb bum.
I didn't ask you. I was asking Steve. I know what you feel.
There's lots of them out there, and there's, like I said, there's a whole different world out there in social media, which you and I do. You do more than I do. I don't do. I do very little on Instagram, and I have become a consumer of TikTok stuff. I don't post anything, but there's a whole community out there that is positive.
Yes.
The problem with social media is you can't keep it positive. Well, you can, but it takes a lot of work, because you just gotta delete the negative, right? There's always going to be, right? I mean, you're always going to get social media, so you're going to get the trolls, the people who are out there looking. So it takes some work to keep it positive, and that work is cleaning up comments, and you can see the accounts that do it, right? You can see the accounts that really clean up. And I'll give you a perfect example. There's a movie out there called Conclave. It's a movie about the Catholic Church picking a new pope. And a little far-fetched for me. My wife and I went to see him. And It was okay. People, so there's a whole bunch of, they're pushing it on social media, right? Facebook a lot. And so you look at it and like, oh, this movie's out there, and you look at all the comments are positive. And what that is, somebody scrubbing the comments, right? There's not a bad comment in there, you know? And I'm like, yeah, somebody's scrubbing these. And I've had some things like, yeah, this is, you know, the movie was good, but a little bit too far-fetched for me, blah, blah, blah. But you don't see any of those comments. And it's the same thing. So if you're going to have a nice positive message out there in a social media account, it's going to take some work and some effort to try to keep it like that.
Mm-hmm. I think it is a positive, and there are old timers who are not going to like the social media stuff. I look at it this way: is it's a reality, and you can reach people, and it can also help you. I can tell that looking at some of these accounts, especially the really vulnerable ones, and there's a fine line. There's a fine line between vulnerable and cuckoo crazy. I am thinking of an account right now where somebody is in sobriety, and this person has totally lost their mind on many things, but it is damaging, and they need a wellness check. And there are others that are very vulnerable, and that you listen to this stuff, and those are the ones I'll comment on, of like, yeah, I felt that way too at 74 days. Yes, I'm actually hearing my story. Thank you for telling that. Mm-hmm. And there are people who are not going to look at pamphlets of a certain age. They may not initially go to an in-person meeting. There are just some things that people of a certain age are not going to do because it's not their communication tool. TikTok, Instagram, social media is something that is going to capture somebody else. So when you see somebody attractive who is young, who is sharing, I got sober and I had this issue. And I've also seen a lot of these people who would be considered high functioning or low bottom, who are out there sharing that. There's somebody else who might say, gosh, maybe I have a problem too. It's a way for other people to connect and get the message out there. And you may not get the message out under the age of 40 with the hotline, right? Or something along those lines, that somebody who came in who's 50 now, they're not going to have those paths. It's like people don't read newspapers under a certain age because it's just not part of what we do. So this is an adaptation. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, no question it is. And like it or not, like I said, there's lots of people who don't like it. They poo-poo it. Just like we talked about, there's a whole community out there that doesn't do AA. There's a whole community out there that believes that AA is the only way, right? Mm-hmm. And neither one of those are correct, right? I mean, to each their own. And but I don't know. I'm having really senior moments today. But you know, the online stuff is, I find a lot of really, really good online stuff. I find a lot of stuff where it comes across, again, mostly my TikTok feed, other places too. It'll come through Facebook for me, that I like. Now, we have a rack of pamphlets that sit in our closet for the Monday night meeting. And every time I go there and to set up, I look at that rack of pamphlets and I go, are these valid anymore?
I don't think so.
Right. Should we be putting these things out like on display? I can't remember the last time I saw somebody walk up to a rack and take a pamphlet. I mean that honestly. So I'm not sure if those things, just like you said, that people don't read newspapers. So the community is the information for many. Now, I will say there's one place that I have noticed that stuff still works, and that's at that detox center, right? Those people do pick up things. They will take certain things. In AA, there's a monthly book called The Grapevine, publishes stories and stuff like that. And again, I get those. I'm a do service work at GSR is what they call it, and they they pass them out. So I get one for your group. So I get one for our Monday night group all the time. Nobody ever takes them. So what I've started to do with those things is I collect them, and I brought like a half dozen of them to this meeting. I put them out like, hey, these guys, you can have these. People took them, right? Like in that case, in that setting where these people don't have access to their phones or anything, right?
That's why.
Right. So boom, it's a new thing to come in and read. They take them. So in that setting, that's a great way to keep going. It's a great reason because they're talking about not printing out some of this stuff. They're talking about whether the grapevine should be only digital. And at first I was like, yeah, probably, right? Nobody reads it anymore. And then you go, oh, wait a minute. There still is a place that we could use printed copies of it. So I don't think it's get rid of it completely. I just do think that the vast majority of people who are coming in the future will not be physical, paper, read it type of people. They'll be met where they are, which is through digital media.
Yeah, an app or a newsletter.
Right.
Those are kind of the way to go. Think about, I'm a New York Times subscriber now. I don't get the physical paper, but I can flip through the app. Although I will say, I'm more likely to sit there and read a lot more stories if I have the physical paper in front of me. There is just a different experience.
Yeah.
But I can grab what I'm looking for by just going through the app. And there are just a lot of people who don't have the experience of reading a Sunday paper all day. I used to do that. Like I could spend a Sunday going through the New York Times.
Yeah.
That's not something anybody has experience with. So a digital strategy would be good, and it does not do this well.
I just want to touch base on that. We went out to Chicago. I don't know if I mentioned it, but we went out to Chicago a few weeks ago, a month ago or so, and we were out there for a few days. And my wife's son got the New York Times delivered, the physical paper.
Wow.
Yeah, and I sat there on that Sunday morning, and I was just like in awe of like how much good stuff to read. And I only spent like a couple hours sort of flipping through it, picking a story here, picking a story there. Like you can spend the whole day going through that paper. And I forgot how good it is. Now I get the Washington Post online, and I like reading it, but you're right. If I had the paper in front of me, it's easier for me to flip through it and find the stories that I want. And now even that with the recent election, like I'm not doing political stuff at all. I'm not doing any of the appointment, and I'm just not doing it. So it's like when I go to the Washington Post now, like I'm going to sports or something, right? I'm going to something totally different.
I flip down fast. Whoop, let me go down.
Right. I go through it, I look for a story, and then because I don't really care what's going on. I just can't do that anymore. But anyway, I do like still having that. But again, I get my news online too. I do still get a physical newspaper, a local thing that I do like, but they offer it online too. And my whole problem with that one is not that I don't like reading it online. They kill you with that. Sort of irritates me that I'm paying for my newspaper, which gives me a digital, and then they pound me with ads, which makes it uncomfortable to read and annoying to read it online because I'm always got these ads in my face. So
bad experience,
right? So I almost never, because there's times where we don't get it because of a holiday or something, and they're like, "Oh, it's available online," and I'd never read it because it's just it is a bad experience. So anyway, digression there.
That's okay. Well, we'd love to hear from you of what you feel about your experience. Do you feel like you're doing enough? Do you feel like you're doing just fine? I think anybody listening to this is always thinking, I could do more, because that's people who are really serious about their sobriety often think, I could always do more because I want to hold on to this. And call to action across social media. It's the same handle at Sober Friends Pod, now on TikTok, now on YouTube, now on, well, we've always been on Instagram. There is no Twitter at all. The Twitter stuff is bye-bye. And if you have a normal disposition, you feel the same way too. What a cesspool Twitter has become, and I have felt like that way for years. So I got rid of it. I don't go there anymore. Makes me happier.
That's good.
All right, everybody. We will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
See ya.